Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me fine? Okay, thanks. My name is Zahid Saeed. I am Communications TSP, work with Microsoft out of Washington, D.C. office. Before joining Microsoft, I was working with partners like IBM, Logicalis, and have experience in Cisco, Avaya, PBX, and since 2011, I am with Microsoft. And today, the objective of the session is to give you a quick recap about the Lync Server 2013 routing, and also talk about the location-based routing. We have different deployment models in Lync Server 2013. And then we will do some features like link call handling services, response group, unassigned numbers, and some other features I will discuss about that. So before I go into the agenda and some other details, I would like to ask how many of you have already either deployed Lync Server 2013 or in the process of doing that? Excellent. And many of you are familiar with the call routing like normalization, voice policies? Good. Because in this session, I will not cover like the basics. I will try to give you an overview up to like a quick recap about the call routing, but not overall. I cannot cover like in detail because we have limited time on that. What about the PBX experience? Who has worked with Cisco or Avaya in the past? Good. So I can also do, if there is a question you want to ask similar, maybe you are new to Lync, and if you want to ask something, okay, if the voice policy, if it's related to what in Cisco or Avaya, definitely I can do that. So in the agenda, we will cover project sponsor. I will discuss why it is important. Before like Communications TSP, I was working in the worldwide voice team, and I was an architect in services. And most of the time, we have seen the projects, if without the sponsor, what happens if there is not a sponsor, and how important it is to have a sponsor. And then I will give an architecture overview of the Lync. As I said, deployment model, it's a little bit confusing, which I have seen, because every second day I'm with the customers. And when we talk with them, okay, hybrid, Lync online, and on-prem, they get confused. So I will make sure we address that and make sure we are on the same page. Then the call routing recap. Any of you, by the way, have done Lync Masters, or have you heard about that? No, okay. And then again, we will go to the call handling services. About the sponsors, right? So when we talk about the Lync Server 2013, and in most of the time there is already a PBX in the environment. And we have a networking team, then we have a collaboration team, and sometimes they work together, but sometimes there is a challenge always, right? And with the Lync, with the collaboration environment, now we think there is no more dial tone and voicemail only, right? No, everybody wants to have their phone wherever they go. They can talk and collaborate from their own device. It could be their iPad, iPhone, Surface, and all. So these teams need to work together. And we have seen many times, okay, you want to do the Lync pilot, let's do the Lync pilot, right? But we do not involve networking team in that discussions. When we do not involve, what happens, right? I came from the networking background, coming from like the PBX, Cisco. I know does not matter how much good codec you have. If you do not have enough bandwidth, it's not going to work, right? It needs quality of service. And maybe the people coming from the desktop environment or collaboration, these things kind of a little different for them. They think, okay, what is quality of service? What is MPLS, you know? So we make sure when we do the deployment, we involve the right teams in that. And we have an executive sponsor there, at least senior IT manager or a project director there who can support you with that. And clearly define the scope of the pilot. What is the success criteria? What you need during that pilot? What are the business drivers for that? Are we talking about 500 users? Are we talking about 1,000 users? What we want to do, IM presence, conferencing, enterprise voice, or you want to integrate with the existing PBX. Believe me, I cannot stress enough on that. I have seen in the beginning, these things when not well defined, the user group, they hate Lync. They say, we don't like it, it's not working, we cannot hear the other party, and the networking team, it's not involved, so the ports are not open there, the bandwidth is not there. So it's really important to make sure that you have executive sponsor who has a clear agenda, you work with him, get the sign-off, and get the clear business drivers, what you want to do, and what are the success criteria. Involve networking team in all the meetings, make sure they are there, or at least if there are any roadblockers, get your executives know. And he can make sure, okay, what the issues are, and he can fix that. That's why I put this slide here. In most of my presentations, I do that to make sure that we understand the importance of executive there. Thus being said, now I will go more into the technical side here. So deployment types, and we have like on-prem, which we call like Lync Server 2013. When I'm going to refer Lync Server 2013, it means the on-prem. And then we will talk the hybrid and the cloud. How many of you are familiar with the hybrid architecture? So we have few of them, okay? So I will try to explain that. It's a little bit confusing, right? And I will make sure we get on the same page when we talk. So on-prem means like you have your Lync Server 2013 hosted within your organization, and you have all the roles like Edge server, whatever they have, they are on the same environment, the same data center that we call on-prem. It could be also hosted by your partner. Maybe you work at AT&T, Verizon, Dimension Data, or any of the partners, they can host it for you. Still, we will call it like on-prem, Lync Server 2013 on-prem. And then there is a cloud portion, which is Lync Online, we call Office 365 Cloud. You can see all the buses written there, the name, Cloud, Microsoft Cloud. So that's how we call it Lync Online. And in Lync Online, we can do IM presence, conferencing video, but we cannot do enterprise voice right now. That's not available through the Lync Online at this moment. And maybe we will talk what is that and what is the difference there. And there is a hybrid model. So what hybrid mean, or split domain we call it, and the use case, I always give a use case when I want to explain something. You have an existing PBX, there are 5,000 users, and you say 500 of them can use enterprise voice. Enterprise voice, I mean, is like calling to PSTN, call forwarding, delegation, simultaneous ring, and all of that. They want to use 500 of that, want to use enterprise voice capabilities, and they want to integrate with their existing PBX. And the rest users, they only need IM presence and conferencing. They can be on the cloud, right? So then we call it a hybrid architecture. You need Lync on-prem. You're going to build an architecture, which will come in the next slides. You need an infrastructure for Lync on-prem, and then you can federate with the Office 365 solution. We call it hybrid. So the caution here is we cannot mix and match the features. Let's say you say, Bob can get IM presence conferencing from the cloud, but he can get enterprise voice from the on-prem where we have gateway. We cannot do that. That is not possible. Only those users which we said they're going to be on-prem, they will get enterprise voice and all those capabilities. And the online user is going to be different. You can federate, you can do IM presence, conferencing, video, no problem. You can schedule calls. It is possible, but we cannot mix and match the features of the same user coming from the cloud or on-prem. By the way, any question here? Are we clear about the hybrid, on-prem or cloud? Because it's really important to have this concept when you're talking with the Microsoft team or the partner, or when you're talking to customers, then you know when they're talking about hybrid, what does this mean? Sure. Can you please come into the mic? I appreciate that because they have to record the session. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. So the on-prem environment needs to be built first, then you enable the cloud for federation, right?
That's correct. Very good point. So we have to, if you can do the on-prem environment and you can migrate that. You have the on-prem environment, you can migrate that. However, if you do not want to have on-prem environment, you can still do in the cloud, but the migration, right? The migration portion, if you want to migrate down the road those users which are in the cloud back into the on-prem, right? Yeah. That will not be possible today, which may be possible in the future. So in other words, the migration up and down is not possible, but you can still have all the user in the cloud, no problem.
Yeah, currently I have a customer that has a cloud-enabled account. They got to pull it back on-prem for some legal issues. So I've been reading up, there is a way to basically set it up on-prem and set up a federation between the existing and bring them back. And I just ran through this week.
Yeah, for that specific use case, when those users which are in the cloud and they want to come back in the on-prem, they should have been created first on-prem.
Correct.
But that case, like we submitted working with the product group, I can tell you, hopefully that's going to be happen soon. Cannot give any dates, but hopefully then you can still do that in the future. You can have those users created in the cloud and can be migrated back to the on-prem. That is the use cases we are getting a lot from the customers' feedback.
Okay.
And working with the business group to make sure they can do that without creating them first on-prem.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome. And when we talk about the Lync Server 2013 on-prem, so you can still have, we discussed hybrid model on-prem and cloud, but there is Exchange portion, there is also SharePoint. So you can have mix and match of that. That's no problem. You can have your Lync Server 2013 on-prem, but you can have your Exchange either on-prem or you can have it online. That's no problem. Or the same thing with the SharePoint, you can mix and match. However, I will suggest, if you want to do that, then definitely read the documentation. There are some features, maybe you're going to see which feature is going to work or no, because SharePoint, for example, if you have your SharePoint online, right, maybe the skill search, which you do right now on the link, I'm not sure how many familiar you are with the search with that. So that might not work if you have SharePoint online. So read the documentation before doing any deployment, planning hybrid model, or having your Exchange or SharePoint online or on the cloud. This is the architecture here for the which addresses both on-prem and so. If we look at here on the right-hand side, you have some roles like monitoring, file store, and then there is front-end servers there. You can see that. So this is the Lync on-prem front-end server, and there is the back-end server. And you have the existing PBX. Whenever you want to do integration with your existing PBX, then you need to have your Lync Server 2013 most of the time on-prem, right? And then on the cloud side, if you see, you can have federation with Skype. You can have federation with any customers or Lync who you want to do. You can do federate. And you also have an Office 365. The example I was giving you, the hybrid model, you can have your Exchange there. You can have some of maybe 4,500 of your users in the cloud. So you can do that. And the PBX on-prem, you can leverage it also by integrating with the Lync Server 2013. You can use your existing investment and can do the integration with it if possible. I have seen more and more use cases with the customers where they say, okay, we want to go to the cloud, but we are not fully ready. We still have a lot of investment in our PBX, and we want to use that PBX. So we say, okay, that's fine. How many users you have that you want to use Lync? On-prem, they want to use enterprise-wide. So we discuss with that, do the design discussion, and after that, they come with the hybrid model. I have seen that trend a lot. By the way, any questions on the... So this is the quick recap I would like to give you about the voice routing. I will try to make it a little bit interactive. Otherwise, whenever I go to this slide, it takes some time, and I can see the people, they feel, okay, which word it is, and they get, here and there. So let's say we have a user that want to dial. There are a couple of ways that he can dial a number. He can dial. So can anyone tell me, like, a user normally what he can do? If he has a Lync client, he can just do the right click or call a person, or he can just right click and call that or put a number. And if he has a phone, right? If he's coming, like people like me who used to do a lot of time with the PBX, and I can dial anything, right? Like I remember my first day at Microsoft, I came from a PBX back. I was looking like, hey, I need to dial 9. I need to dial 9. I want to go out from here, and then I'm going to dial rest of the number. So that is typically happens with the users. So we have to understand what the user habits are, how they are dialing. Are they using a SIP URI, or are they dialing like full E164 number, or they are dialing 9 and all of that. So we have to know the user habits. It's really important to know that, because ultimately you are the one who's going to plan how to use the call routing and how to develop the call routing based on that. So let's say if a user dial a SIP URI I mean right-click, dial a name, or put the full SIP address, no problem. You can see from the diagram here, you can see my mouse here, I think. Yeah, can you see my mouse or no? No, okay. So if you look at the top there, the SIP URI, if it dials, it just goes to the inbound routing, you're fine. The call will go through, no problem. However, if it dials 4-digit or dialing 9, then it needs additional processing too. The other thing we want to check is if it dials a number, whether it is 911, E911, it's 999, based on which part of the world you are. So it's going to check that. Is it an emergency number? If it is emergency number, right, okay, check the location policy and let it route the call. So the call will go through. The third option, it's not an emergency number. So what it is it a global number or no? So if it's a global number, normally we say it's a global number, it starts with the plus. And we say, okay, it's a global number. It does not need a lot of processing. Maybe it's E164 number or no. By the way, how many are familiar with the E164 number? Good. So it's a globally unique number. That plus, if you're in North America, +1, and then the 10 digits. If you are in Europe, then again, based on the routing, you put plus, and then you dial the other. Like in Germany, you do +49. In Dubai, you do +971, so all of that. So the number 4 step, then it is, if it's a global number, let's check it's normalized or no. So if you put 1-800-flowers on your Lync client, you have seen, I don't know how many of you have checked it, like when you put 1-800-flowers there, it's going to automatically convert that number to the digits, right? And if I dial, like Toronto number, I say 9416854XXX. Then what it's going to do is it's going to take your 9 away, and it's going to put +1-416-854XXX. It's doing normalization for you on the back end, which was done one of your, either the partner or Microsoft, or you do that normalization either by user per user or per site. You do that normalization on that. Once the normalization is done, right, then you see, okay, if it matches or no, is it a good number or no? Maybe it's not normalized, right? When I say I am dialing any weird number 0001234, it's going to say I have no normalization for it, right? It doesn't belong to me, and we are using maybe 5-digit extensions, and it's only 4-digit, and so it's going to say check your number and try it's not a valid number. It's going to ask the user to do that. And then it's also going to check if it's a call park range or no. So these are all things going on the back end in the normalization based on the user habit. So it's really critical when you do a planning with your customer or the partner, then think, okay, how their user habits are. Are they dialing 9? I have also seen I was working with IBM in Toronto office, then we do dial 8 to go out rather than 9. So we have to make sure we capture these things during the design session, that when you dial 8, I have to remove that. And I do normalization properly. When normalization is done, we say, okay, this is the number. Then the other thing Lync does is it checks. It do a reverse number lookup. It finds out maybe this number already exists within the organization. Maybe it belongs to a user, or maybe it's involved in the simultaneous ring and all of that. So when it does the reverse number lookup, and then it can still go to the inbound routing, assuming it doesn't belong to us, right? It doesn't belong to within the same organization. Then it's gonna again look, okay, what other services it can have, maybe call park or announcement. It can be the unassigned number, dial out. So it's going to check all of these. If you see in the box, it's going to check all of those different things before routing it out. Still, we are in the user side. We are making sure, okay, it's going through the user process. Normalization is done. Still, the number is within the Lync server. It has not gone through outside world. Yeah, it's checking if it's the call park announcement application. If it belongs to that, then we do not need to send it to the gateway. It's going to be within the organization. Now we see all of these processes are gone. We check, okay, the number does not belong within the organization. It's not a call park number, so we need to route the number. Maybe it's going from the normalization. I can see if it's dialing +1 416 854 access is somebody's cell number, office number. So I need to now route it to somewhere, right? Once we do that, then the second portion of infrastructure starts. Then we think, okay, now let's look at the user. Maybe he has permissions, maybe he does not have permissions. Maybe he's only assigned to dial local and long distance. He's not supposed to dial any international number. So we have to check that. We call it voice policy. That needs to be assigned per user. And also the sites, I think we can talk about that. So it checks that. And also there are PSTN usages. I will discuss in next slides. Where PSTN usages, like he can call to a local, national, international, which numbers he can call. So these PSTN usages are assigned to the voice policy. And then there are the routes, right? So these are the routes that are associated with your calling patterns. Maybe they have the gateways they can call outside and which gateway to use, all of that, they are associated with the routes. And then we have also the trunks there. Finally, the trunks can have multiple gateways, and it can have the same route and patterns that are associated with it. So all of these things are done on the making sure the other side, which is the infrastructure which we have associated, that can be done from there. And finally, it goes to the external participants. It rings the phone. If this is a valid number, then it goes out from the organization. So we talked about the voice, the mechanism about the voice policies, PSTN usage, and routes, right? So what are the voice policies, right? Voice policies tells the user where he can call, what other things he has simultaneous ring, can he has the call park. It's actually the class of service that you assign as part of your architecture. Okay, what kind of class of service I am looking for this, right? If you are doing a lobby, you definitely want to assign just the lobby phones, local access, or maybe internal access. And then there are PSTN usages. PSTN usages are associated with the voice policy. If they are PSTN usages within your Lync server, but if they are not associated with your voice policy and routes, then they are doing nothing there. They are just sitting idle. So they need to associate with that. And then you have the routes there. We discuss in the call flow. Then that helps to call the number there. Just an overview of the voice policy. It can be assigned per user, per site, or global. So call routing is critical in all like the deployments you see. Either it could be a via Cisco or that. So it's critical to make sure your voice policies are set and call routing is there. So the voice policies can be done per site, per user, or it's global, right? What I mean is, if you have a voice policy that is per site, and if you have a voice policy also per user, so per user going to take precedence. If you have two policies there, automatically per user will take it. So we want to make sure what we are assigning and what policies exist there. And as I said, it's really useful for the common area devices. If you are in an office and there is a phone there, and if you want to dial out, right, you are normally given access only to the local. You are lucky if you get international, because then everybody going to dial out and they're going to be very happy. So make sure once you do that, we assign the proper class of service to all the devices. PSTN usages, a brief overview here is it specifies a class of call. It's internal, local, international. Always try to use meaningful PSTN usages, like give them a proper name, especially when you're on a global project working. If you have like a global environment, maybe in Germany, say local Germany, the national, international Germany. So each PSTN usage, you can have it. And when you want to add different sites, it's much easier to add it if there are meaningful names there. The routes, they associate with the phone numbers, which we covered during our discussion in the diagram. And you can control the gateway preferences, right? Finally, you can have multiple gateways, right? Within the dial plan, you have multiple gateways. Which gateway you want to associate for this call, and maybe the closest gateway to the calling party or call party. So you want to, based on that, you can decide, okay, how I can save money within my organization. It could be toll bypass, or it could be location-based routing, which we will discuss that. So all these decisions you can do, and if you want to change the caller ID, if you want everybody to send the same caller ID to the outside world, you can do all of that during the trunk. So it's important to plan accordingly what your goals are and what you want to do there. So this was a quick recap for the voice routing. Normally, when we do the voice routing, it's like normally 90 minutes session alone on the voice routing, right? So this was, I was not able to cover like all of different parts on it, but I tried to give you a recap on it. Before I go to location-based routing now, any questions on the call routing? This session, we will talk more, no, not on the gateways, not on the SBA or SPS. We will not talk about them.
Then so I saw you go to SIP. What about H323?
Right. So we do not support H323, right? So again, you're gonna have in between that, if you have transcoding, or you can have a gateway that can convert that to the codec which you want, and then do that, right? But we do the SIP, and there are different codecs involved in that. We can definitely do that. Location-based routing. This is a new feature. I would say maybe not any more new, because it was introduced last year in February. Very interesting. Maybe it's not much used here in North America, but look other countries like Middle East, India, Pakistan. In Africa, I was working, as I said, part of the global team, and I was used to go to Johannesburg and visited a lot of times Saudi and other India. So those countries, they do not allow you to do toll bypass. They want you to use the local PSTN gateway. If you want to make an international call, use their gateway. If you do not do that, you are violating the law. You can get a big fine for it, right? And I will explain what is toll bypass. And so based on these requirements, we have big presence in India, and a lot of our customers have like global customers, and they cannot deploy it, right? They say we could be in a bad position if we do that, and it was a big blocker for a lot of deployments, right? We were not able to do that. So they said no allowed to toll bypass. And maybe within the enterprise, if you are using link-to-link call, if I have my Microsoft Office there in Dubai, I am in Washington, D.C., I can call to each other, link-to-link is fine. But if I want to call from the bay to a local number, a PSTN number, a cell number from there, it must use the gateway. I cannot take the call over the WAN and just use the gateway from the Washington, D.C. and save the money. This is not possible. So then the location-based routing was introduced in February. What it does is, definitely the main idea behind was to enable the compliance, but no, it can also be used with the time. You will see it can be used many other ways, because some places the WAN is expensive and you want to use a SIP trunking, maybe that is cheaper. No, you can also use that, but that was also the idea behind that. So what it does is the route the caller based on the location where the caller is, right? So, and enforce routing of PSTN calls. Let's see what, giving you example. Just the difference between the least cost routing and the location-based routing. In least cost routing, we prioritize the WAN. We say, okay, take the call over the WAN and make it happen. Just like I have multiple offices in the global, like Microsoft has offices. So we say, if I make a call from the Bay to, let's say, Houston, so take the call over the WAN and just use the Houston gateway. It's local to me, free almost to me, because I'm already paying for the PRI or SIP trunking. I don't worry. So that is called toll bypass. That was not allowed, right? So location-based routing, what it does is, if you make a call, if I now make a call from the Bay to Houston, it's going to say, if the user is enabled for location-based routing, it's going to use the local gateway automatically. Once it is configured, it's going to say it's an international call. I will use the local gateway. I'm not going to do the toll bypass because I am enabled for location-based routing. So it does enable the compliance. Giving an example, so location A and location B we have. So Alice, she's on location A, and you can see the Bob, he's on location B. So she calls to Bob. So there are two paths. One is the WAN and one is the PSTN, right? It can take, it's maybe easier if you want to take the WAN. So when we enable the location-based routing, it's going to take the PSTN path. It's going to say, this user is enabled for that, and based on the compliance, which I did, so you can see it's going to take the PSTN path, and the call will go through the PSTN gateway. What about the inbound routing now, right? Very interesting scenario comes. No, Alice, she was maybe somewhere in Dubai. No, she moved to Houston, right? She still has the same number. She's able to sign in here as a Lync client. No, maybe some people know that they're just going to dial the same number. What's going to happen then, right? So that's inbound routing. What now the location-based routing does is, if I am in Dubai, I call to Alice, or maybe Bob in this example, he calls to Alice. So the call goes through, and then because that user was enabled for the location-based routing, and the Alice, she's not there because we assigned a subnet. I will go through that, how we enable that. So the call will go to the voicemail, and the user will get the notification. Then her phone will not ring if she is signed on here on the Lync client. It will not ring. It will go to the voicemail. So maybe it's not one of the best solutions, but it's complying the regulations there. Yeah, this is the same example, I think, which we discussed. So it enforces that outgoing call must egress from the PSTN gateway where the user is located. It cannot do the other way around. The same way the incoming call, if the user is moving, because that's what we do in the global environment, I move like every second week. I maybe in a new country, new place, but my number goes with me where I am. So that this way, if somebody have a specific region, so it can comply with the location-based routing law. There are some limitations that you have a question? Any questions so far? So go ahead.
So I just want to clarify. One is the check depends where the user is, right? They would enforce that LPR. But at the same time, you rely on the admin to configure correctly in the routing configuration.
Yeah.
You basically don't
Right. So let me understand. So the question you said, if the admin if the users are moved, right, and if the admin has to configure location-based routing, then he can configure. You mean like both can be configured or no least cost or location-based routing?
No, I'm saying if the user is local at that area that you cannot do the control by bus,
Right.
the admin can, in the voice routing, you can only configure the local PST and you cannot configure something different.
Right. Right.
So it has some liability on the admin.
Yes. Absolutely. So during then again the design session when we do for the deployment purpose, we say, okay, which users or which areas which has compliance requirement, we take the subnet of that area and we say, okay, these subnets needs to be in location-based routing and we enable for that. We first globally enable and then we enable per site and then we decide these needs to be there. But by the way, you can do both. If you want, you can have least cost routing and location-based routing both enabled, right? It again depends which user in North America they can do within the same pool, they can use the tool bypass, other can do the location-based routing. It can be done. There are some limitations here. If you do enable the location-based routing, so if you look at here the slides, the call, park, and response groups, which I will discuss next. So these are actually they are some limitations. There is no way for the call, park, or the response group to find out that they are enabled for location-based routing. Maybe the same user who is in the response group, there is no way for them to find it, right? So maybe if you want to enable that, then do not use their response group or call, park. Because for the sites, if we are giving site A and site B, and if they are part of the response group or call, park, if somebody is using their response group, they're not going to differentiate about that. So call going to go over the WAN. There is no way right now to find out, okay, if it's enabled for location-based. So these are the limitations there. So do not do the call, park, and response group for that to get the compliance with the law. Or within the same site, definitely you can do it, but not the multiple site. So go ahead, yeah. Right. Right. So for that, when you call, because that is an outbound call that made by the user to go to his cell phone. So if that user is enabled for location-based routing, which is forwarding to his cell phone, because you do a PC-to-PC call, maybe he enabled simultaneous ring, right? Or he's forwarded. So if that user is enabled for location-based routing, then if he's in North America, we have no issue. But the other, he will be using the local gateway for that, right? He will be using the local gateway because you make a PC-to-PC call, but he forwarded that to the other. But that's fine according to this law. Within the North America, this is fine. Okay. So if he was in Sri Lanka and he was enabled, that's going to lie to the scenario which I discussed with Alice and Bob, right? So it's going to go to the voicemail. It's going to go to the voicemail if that is enabled for that, because that user we have enabled for location-based routing. And he will go to the voicemail, he will just get the notification. So when we plan the location-based routing, we see, okay, how to handle the call forwarding, simultaneous ring, and if we are complying with the law or not. Yeah. So it depends, again, if the location-based routing, if that user is enabled for location-based routing, and if he, as long as he can use the local gateway, which is there, which is egress, he can do that. That is fine. But if he is by law, we say, okay, this was enabled for location-based routing. He moved from one place to the other place in other country where he's not supposed to be, then it will not be forwarded. It will go to his voicemail. But in that case, if the user is in Sri Lanka, still in Sri Lanka, right? He has not moved, let's say, to Toronto. So in that case, that call forwarding, which happened in the same location, same site, that's still going to comply with the law because he's going to use the local gateway, which we want to use, which the Sri Lanka want to do. That is fine. As long as they are using the same gateway, which lies to the same site, no issue with that. Is it clear? Okay, so let's give a use case here, example. So if location A and location B, giving example for Sri Lanka or maybe any other country. So if a user A call to user B is configured within the user, within his own site, right? Within his own site. If he calls from A to B, and if he has simultaneous ring on, right? So that is no issue with that because he is within his own site. He can use his own gateway because in location-based routing, we make sure the local gateway is used. So as long as he is using if the call will be forwarded, he will be using the same gateway. This is fine with us. If he moves from that country to other country and he has enabled call forwarding, that will not work because that time, that gateway who originated the call, it finds out, okay, this guy is not here, it's going to go to the voicemail. So again, we don't know if it's a location-based routing enabled or no, right? So it's going to work only when the location-based routing is enabled, right? Okay. So how we configure that? No, I think it will make a little bit clear with the sites. We call some basics about that. The site one or more link subnets assigned to a location. We say this is within a site. And the users which are within the same site, we say they are assigned to a specific subnet. You can use existing network sites like location information services which you have, or media bypass, or E911. So these sites you can already use which are there. And then there is a voice routing policy. Before I was talking about voice policy. Now we are talking voice routing policy. That is a different, specifically made for the location-based routing. So within the voice policy, there is a voice routing policy that makes sure that is applied to the users, and that has specific requirement which I mentioned about the gateway that needs to precedence within the local site. If the user is unknown location, let's say I'm working from home, I am external user, it's unknown location, then we call it unknown, and we treat it differently. And the trunk, again, it connects gateways and mediation servers. They can be enabled for location-based routing. So these are the supported for location-based routing. You see at the top, it was introduced in February last year. So if you have a Lync Server 2013, that has a cumulative update in February, then the location-based routing is supported. Otherwise, it is not supported. So we want to make sure if you have it, you just update it, and you're fine with that. Otherwise, maybe you're not going to get the command on the PowerShell to get the flag turned on and off if it does not have the cumulative update there. Same with the client perspective. So 2013, a client that has the updated could be installed, Lync 2010. So these are the supported clients for location-based routing. Now, how to enable that, right? So we're going to talk about, by the way, the location-based routing, the important thing is we need to use PowerShell command. We cannot do it right now through the control panel, through the topology builder. We have to use the PowerShell commands for that. Maybe the sites, yes, you can create from the control panel. That's fine. But whenever you want to enable the location-based route, you have to go to the PowerShell and do that. Maybe in the future, things change. We don't know, but right now there is nowhere. And here are the commands. We see, okay, the routing policy, identity, name, PSTN usages. These are the same usages which we were discussing in our at the first half of that. And then you can enable on the trunk, right? Identity trunk configuration, you need to enable that. And here, let's go back. Here are the globally. First, you need to enable global wide, that I am enabling location-based routing. Once you enable that, then you can go to the sites. Okay, this site, now I'm going to enable location-based routing for this site, for this site. So you turn, as I said, you can mix and match least cost routing and location-based routing. They both can be mix and match for that. And again, depending upon some places, the WAN is expensive. You can use SIP trunking, maybe enforce the PSTN. And some places, if it's a compliance requirement, we definitely need to use the location-based routing. Some design consideration. So make sure we have all the policies set up there. If there are different paths for the call, if it is going to the PSTN or know what happens. So we want to make sure they're all covered within that. The next section I have is about the voice applications. Any questions before we close this location-based routing?
So just to clarify, so we have in Lync we have the concept site, right? But here you say within one voice policy, there's network site.
Subnets, yeah. There is a site, you can use the same sites which you have. The same site which you have, which let's say you have same subnets and the sites you use for E911. Sometime you define, okay, this is E911 compared the subnets. And then there is another usage we call, there is the voice routing policy. That is specifically used for the LBR, location-based routing. That take precedence when the user is enabled for that. It checks within that, okay, this user is enabled for that, I'm going to enforce it. I'm going to take this priority. I will make that call to go through that. Any other questions? Okay. So because we are talking about the Lync deployment, I just covered like 2 sections. No, it's more with the application perspective. The response group and assign numbers and so these all the small applications, they come out of the box with the front end server. There is no separate application that you need to have for this. Once you install the Lync Server 2013 and that is enabled for enterprise voice, right? You get it, you have it. So it's not something, okay, I need another server, I want to enable that if I want to get the response group. What the response group gives you is the capability for a reception. If I am an IT organization or maybe a big customer, they have a small IT shop and they want to support their existing users so they can use it gives you real-time queuing capabilities. How many people know response group before? So you are using that. That's good. So once you install it, you get it. But just one caution I want to make sure we are clear on that is that it's not a replacement of contact center. If you have a contact center that is doing reporting, that can do the database dipping, if a call comes based on, like in the pharmaceutical industry, if somebody calls, the name pop-ups, and then you get his full history on that. So it's not replacement of that. It can do real-time queuing. We will see that. It can do up to some extent IVR, but it's not a replacement of contact center. I have seen so many cases where the customers started using as a contact center and they say this is not working here. We suppose that they try to make a very complex IVRs from that. So that's kind of overselling this feature, the response group. Here how the agents are, if you look at the right-hand side, how you create that. So you say, okay, I want to make a help desk group description. You can give it, then you make it formal or informal. The agents, as part of that, you can make them informal and formal. What the difference between formal and informal is, if I make an agent as a formal, then that agent has the flexibility to go through a web browser, which he will get, and there are different queues, and he can see, okay, which I can assign, which I can click on the queue, and I can get the calls. And if you make an informal agent, it means that as soon as the agent logs in, he will start getting calls for the queues which he was already assigned. For the purpose, as I said, the purpose was the response group that you want to support within your organization, the users which you want, they can call you, and you have maybe 5 people in a queue, they can get the call one by one, and you can help them, whatever you want to do there. And then there are different options. How what should be the time, and the longest idle, circular, there are different options, how you want the call route to. They are similar to contact center. If you are using maybe the Cisco Enterprise, or UCCX, or Avaya call center environment, so the features it gives you up to limited level, almost the same thing, but again, it cannot be used as a full-fledged call center. And as I said, you do not need any other server. It's out of the box, but you need to configure it. You need to plan for that. Some more, once you are configuring that, we need to see, okay, what could be the queue timeout. So if you have a queue there and you have 3 or 4 agents, okay, if it's ringing, what could be after maybe 30 or 60 seconds? Where it should go. Maybe if nobody is picking, it goes to the next agent, or if that is not picking, then maybe it go to the reception, needs to go to the voicemail. So these call flows, you plan it during your design session. Okay, what we need to do with this, how many agents we want, what type of groups we are looking for, what should be the call flow, and in case if something is not picking up, what will happen? Again, based on the queue size, what is the maximum queue size? If the queue size is maybe 50, and if it goes more, what should we do? Where it should be overflowing. So these all things need to be planned. You have the flexibility of doing the hunt groups, that you can do the basic recording. If somebody calls to the response group, you pick up the phone, what happens now? You want to put it on a music on hold, or a recording message, or greeting. These all can be done within the response group. You can have business hours, the holidays, greetings. You can define 9 to 6. It's going to be like this. After that, what the message is going to come, and how the queue will work. So these are all configurable options you can do within the response group. IVR, as I said, you can say press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for here, or you can do voice interactive, what needs to be done. It all can be done within the response group. Response group administrator, how in Lync Server 2013, there was a change here. In 2013, what happened, there was another role was introduced, and that was the manager role. Before in 2010, we only have administrator role that can control how to create that, how to delete, and fully manage. In 2013, another role was created. The reason for that was if there are, let's say, 10 queues, if there are 10 queues, you can have a manager managing, maybe 3 managers managing 5 queues, and they are fully responsible for that. They cannot see what is going on in other queues unless administrator give them access and make them 10 queue managers. So this time you can do separation of control, and it can be better managed. It's only available in 2013. Then the other use case is if a user calls, and then it could be anonymous, or it could not be anonymous. It depends how you want to configure that. Let's say Alice, she calls Bob, and then they establish a call. It's still anonymous. She will not find out, okay, she's talking to Bob or no. It's how you configure that. This is a feature, by the way, within the response group. You say, okay, I want to do it anonymous or not anonymous. Based on that, it could be configured. If it's anonymous, then it still go through all the time response group. If it is not, then they will establish the connection with each other. So there are some limitations. Whenever you decide to go with anonymous or unanonymous, then you have to see, okay, what things can be done or what cannot be done, right? So the anonymous calls cannot start with IM or video through the agent. And they can do hold transfer, that's possible, but there are some features like desktop sharing and some other features, they do not work when you go with anonymous. So again, whenever you plan to do these kind of things, please read all the details based on your design requirement, what you want to do. Maybe it looks a simple check, okay, anonymous or not. And maybe when you see, okay, desktop sharing is not happening, what should I do now? Then maybe you click the anonymous. So read these things before we decide, okay, which things we want to do. Right. So when the Alice, she's calling, right, and if the call, there is a response group between there, so the agent is anonymous. We configure only the agent anonymous or not anonymous. So, but that both will be known to each other if it is configured as not anonymous. So both will be known that the caller ID will be visible to the callee, which is the Alice in this case. Right. She will call that number that time. But once you do that, sometimes you see on the window that the other party name will not be visible there. But when it is configured as not anonymous, she can easily see, okay, this was the Bob I was calling about. Then the connection will get established on that. Otherwise, if it's not, then she will always see, okay, I don't know, it was some agent there, if it is configured as anonymous. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's just like hiding your caller ID at some time and not hiding your caller ID sometime. Then the unassigned number, because we were talking in broader sense about the deployment, how the deployments does. So unassigned number, this is also a feature within the Lync Server 2013. If within the organization we have maybe 5,000 numbers, but we are only using maybe 1,000 numbers and 4,000 are unassigned. And if somebody calls that number, you do not want that to get busy signal. You do not want that to get just like busy tune or hang up. So these unassigned number, you can make sure that these numbers go to a phone number, CPU, or maybe go to a reception, and you can have a recorded message for that, for these unassigned number. If you look here in the slide, so there are different options we can do. We can say these range of these numbers which belongs to our organization, but it needs to go to a recorded message. Maybe it needs to go to a receptionist when somebody calls it. So you can play with that as much as you want. This is also, I remember when I was working in one of the projects that was in Montreal in Canada, so they have a long list of DIDs there. And they advertise that too. So they call the number, and when they call the number, people get the busy tune, and they were looking at us, okay, what should we do now? Because people are calling, we are not getting anything. Then we looked at overall the unassigned number. They said they have not done anything with that unassigned number. They have not decided, okay, where this range should go. It should go to their auto attendant, or it should go to a recorded message. So once we fix that, then they were happy on that. So it's really good to know if they have unassigned number range and what they want to do with that. Sure. Right. So yeah, this is not related to that, but definitely there is a feature. Sure. Yeah. Can you go to the mic? So I can also repeat the question, that one for that. So she said, is there any feature that within the Lync client, if I do not want to talk to you right now, I just want to leave a message for you? Absolutely, this can be done through the Lync client. That you go there, if under the contact, if you click on that, it gives you option. You want to call her via Lync, via cell phone, via work number, or you want to leave just a voicemail. So you can do that. But that is not related to unassigned number, but definitely you can do that. Unassigned number? So again, I think if people are here with a telecom background, they know when you get the PRI, DIDs from the telcos providers, so they give you a lot of range of that. Maybe you are using maybe 5 or 10 of those DIDs, but they give you every channel, they give you sometime a DIDs, right? And these numbers, these DIDs are not assigned to users. But when someone calls that number, it needs to go somewhere. So we assign that number, the range of numbers when somebody calls, because it's not assigned to user, but still belongs to them. So if somebody calls that number, we can decide, okay, it needs to go to receptionist, or it needs to go to a voicemail, or it needs to go to there. So we can configure this way in that scenario. Not the wrong number. I was saying if let's say I am a customer, right, and I have 5,000 DIDs. DIDs I get, but only I assign 500 numbers, right? But maybe on the yellow pages someplace you advertise all of your numbers, which you have not assigned that, right? If a user is now calling those numbers that are not assigned to user, they're going to get fast, busy, a dialogue. They're going to say, okay, these guys advertise their number, but nobody's picking up or it's getting there. So these are unassigned number, which maybe the telecom team know, but not their business people, they don't know what's going on. So there is always a range of unassigned numbers that you use, and you can have that number converted wherever you want. Is it clear? No?
I didn't get the business case. Like, if it's not assigned, why you advertise it? Sorry.
So no worries. So after this session, I think I can explain you, because this is the unassigned number is features which is sometimes widely used, sometimes not used, right? So we can definitely talk about that. The call park, again, this is built-in feature. Lync Server 2013, you do not need to have any other application. This could be this could be used, and again, the requirement for that is if you are using call park range for 4 digits, keep it 4 digits. Do not use the call park range, sometimes 3 digits, sometimes 4 digits. That's not going to work this way. So always use the same, and make these digits unique. If you have a DID, it should not match with these. They should be unique for that. These 4 should not match with any other numbers which you have within your environment. So there, the policy is off by default. You need to enable that if you want to configure call park. So the number ranges are per pool. It as I said, should be globally unique within the pool. So we cannot have maybe these number mixed with other numbers which you have configured maybe for response group or others. So it must be unique. When the call is parked, you can see what you want to do when call is parked, music on hold, or there are different possibilities. The default timeout, how long it should park. If the call, nobody picks up, nobody retrieves the call, then what should happen to that call? So this can be done. This is just the call flow, which we have. The Alice, she calls, and the call goes to Bob, and he parks the call, and then the announcement is done. Okay, there is a call park, and then Charlie goes and maybe dial the orbit number #199, and he can pick up the call. The same way we can do with the group call pickup. If we have within the organization, maybe there's especially the sales team, they do not want any call to go away. And if somebody call and maybe within the group one is not available, the other one can pick up the call on his behalf, because both are configured for it. So this is also a very good feature. As I said, you have it, you own the Lync server, you have all of these features, just get benefit from that. And when we talk to the customers, normally they say, okay, how Lync can provide PBX? So look, all these enterprise-wise features, like you can do full enterprise-wise and call park. And as I discussed, the mini call center environment like response group. So these are all out of the box, you get it. Once you have it, you can deploy it. You can fully replace your PBX with Lync, or you can have integration with the PBX and can work as long as you are paying for the PBX, then you can leverage that. A little bit more about here, the group that can be flagged. Users are enabled by being assigned an orbit number, right? In the group, okay, these 2 or 3 users could be enabled for that, and there's a part of the group there. This is so that's about the session which I had. Any questions on the hybrid architecture or architect or overall anything? Sure.
It's about the hybrid that
Yeah.
you mentioned at the beginning. So let's say you have Lync Online, you already have users there, then you want to build something on premise, and then you do the hybrid. So
Okay, so the question is, if you have a hybrid architecture, you have users online, right, and you have users on-prem.
Yeah, let's say you started online,
Okay,
then you introduce on-premise.
okay,
So at this point, you have everyone online. So I cannot move this to the premise.
okay.
But are they still working on cloud, even though I already did the hybrid?
So the users in the cloud, if you have users in the cloud, right, and they're gonna be working, no problem, even if you do not have users on-prem. So the cloud user will still working, but they cannot use enterprise-wise capabilities.
Even with the DNS chains for the hybrid, even though they will still working.
Yeah, because there is a synchronization going on, between that. So if you disable the user one side, if you migrate that, first of all, one thing let's make clear that we cannot today, at this time, we cannot migrate the hybrid user to on-prem without creating them first on-prem. This is the use case right now these days, right? If you do migrate the users, right, because they are sync with each other and there is a ADFS going on, so when you disable that, then the Lync server knows, okay, this is disabled, this user was created on that. So that time, there is maybe that window time, maybe the seconds or whenever you want to do, that will be downtime for this. That will be very minimum, but still will be a downtime. Those users which are disabled from there and created here.
But if I don't disable them?
Well, yeah.
The scenario again, I have users online.
Okay.
I have 20 users online. I introduce on-premise. I do the hybrid. For that, I have to change the DNS and I don't know what else. So now I have 20 online and I have 0 on-premise. But the users that are online, at the moment I do the hybrid, they like disappear or they are still working online.
So I think that, yeah, so to be honest, I did not get the question. Maybe we can, we can draw that because I am not clear about the use case. What is the use case? What you want to do?
I don't want to delete their accounts.
Okay.
Create them because they are not going to use enterprise voice.
Right. So if they're not going to use the enterprise voice, they will be in the cloud, right? They can be in the cloud, no problem. No problem. They can be in the cloud, but you cannot have the same user created in the on-prem. That's the feature I said. You cannot do. So you can have in the cloud hybrid, no problem. The users which are in the cloud, they can use IM presence, conferencing, video, and even if you have a hybrid architecture, the other users will keep on using enterprise voice. So no disruption there. No disruption there. You're welcome. Guys, any other? Sorry, go ahead.
As enterprises are moving from via Cisco PBXs with internal dial plans, how are you seeing them migrate over to Lync Enterprise Voice? Are you seeing more companies do private dial plans still, normalizing them to E164, or just saying, tough, you're going to E164 dial plan?
Right. So E164, this is, by the way, do we want to close this, the recording? Do we want to stop this? If you like, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me fine? Okay, thanks. My name is Zahid Saeed. I am Communications TSP, work with Microsoft out of Washington, D.C. office. Before joining Microsoft, I was working with partners like IBM, Logicalis, and have experience in Cisco, Avaya, PBX, and since 2011, I am with Microsoft. And today, the objective of the session is to give you a quick recap about the Lync Server 2013 routing, and also talk about the location-based routing. We have different deployment models in Lync Server 2013. And then we will do some features like link call handling services, response group, unassigned numbers, and some other features I will discuss about that. So before I go into the agenda and some other details, I would like to ask how many of you have already either deployed Lync Server 2013 or in the process of doing that? Excellent. I came from the networking background, coming from like the PBX Cisco. I know does not matter how much good codec you have. If you do not have enough bandwidth, it's not going to work, right? It needs quality of service. And maybe the people coming from the desktop environment or collaboration, these things kind of a little different for them. They think, okay, what is quality of service? What is MPLS, you know? So we make sure when we do the deployment, we involve the right teams in that. And we have an executive sponsor there, at least senior IT manager or a project director there who can support you with that and clearly define the scope of the pilot. What is the success criteria? What you need during that pilot? What are the business drivers for that? Are we talking about 500 users? Are we talking about 1,000 users? What we want to do, IM presence, conferencing, enterprise voice, or you want to integrate with the existing PBX. Believe me, I cannot stress enough on that. I have seen in the beginning, these things when not well defined, the user group, they hate Lync. They say, you know, we don't like it, it's not working, we cannot hear the other party, and the networking team, it's not involved, so the ports are not open there, the bandwidth is not there. So it's really important to make sure that you have executive sponsor who has a clear agenda, you work with him, get the sign-off, and get the clear business drivers, what you want to do, and what are the success criteria. Involve networking team in all the meetings, make sure they are there, or at least if there are any roadblockers, get your executives know. And he can make sure, okay, what the issues are, and he can fix that. That's why I put this slide here. In most of my presentations, I do that to make sure that we understand the importance of executive there. Thus being said, now I will go more into the technical side here. So deployment types, and we have like on-prem, which we call like Lync Server 2013. When I'm going to refer Lync Server 2013, it means the on-prem. And then we will talk the hybrid and the cloud. How many of you are familiar with the hybrid architecture? So we have few of them, okay? So I will try to explain that. It's a little bit confusing, right? And I will make sure we get on the same page when we talk. So on-prem means like you have your Lync Server 2013 hosted within your organization, and you have all the roles like Edge server, whatever they have, they are on the. And many of you are familiar with the call routing, like normalization, voice policies. Good. Because in this session, I will not cover like the basics. I will try to give you an overview up to like a quick recap about the call routing, but not overall. I cannot cover like in detail because we have limited time on that. What about the PBX experience? Who has worked with Cisco or Avaya in the past? Good. So I can also do, if there is a question you want to ask similar, maybe you are new to Lync, and if you want to ask something, okay, if the voice policy, if it's related to what in Cisco or Avaya, definitely I can do that. So in the agenda, we will cover project sponsor. I will discuss why it is important. Before like communications TSP, I was working in the worldwide voice team, and I was an architect in services. And most of the time, we have seen the projects, if without the sponsor, what happens if there is not a sponsor, and how important it is to have a sponsor. And then I will give an architecture overview of the Lync. As I said, deployment model, it's a little bit confusing, which I have seen, because every second day I'm with the customers. And when we talk with them, okay, hybrid, Lync online, and on-prem, they get confused. So I will make sure we address that and make sure we are on the same page. Then the call routing recap. Any of you, by the way, have done Lync Masters, or have you heard about that? No, okay. And then again, we will go to the call handling services. About the sponsors, right? So when we talk about the Lync Server 2013, and in most of the time there is already a PBX in the environment. And we have a networking team, then we have a collaboration team, and they sometimes they work together, but sometimes there is a challenge always, right? And with the Lync, with the collaboration environment, now we think there is no more dial tone and voicemail only, right? No, everybody wants to have their phone wherever they go. They can talk and collaborate from their own device. It could be their iPad, iPhone, Surface, and all of. So these teams needs to work together. And we have seen many times, okay, you want to do the Lync pilot, let's do the Lync pilot, right? But we do not involve networking team in that discussions. When we do not involve, what happens, right?